Hello and welcome to the special episode of The Buck Stops Here, coming to you today from London. Here in London, the literary world is all abuzz with the publication of Salman Rushdie's memoirs. That's right, his very personal account of what happened to him in the Fatwa years in which he took on a false literary identity called Joseph Anton. Of course, this is a book that will raise once again the debate around how far freedom of speech and expression can go. But it's also a very, very personal and in many places a searingly honest account. One in which Rushdie looks back at what he calls his moments of weakness and even moments of occasional foolishness. On The Buck Stops Here today in London, Salman Rushdie is our newsmaker today. Salman, it's been more than 2 decades since the Satanic Verses was first published, and then you found yourself literally living on the run after a fatwa was declared against you. Why did it take you so long to write about what happened in those years?
Well, because I didn't want to. You know, for a long time, first of all, the whole saga lasted, I don't know, almost 12 years really.
Yeah.
And by the time I sort of finally came out of the tunnel and had a sort of ordinary life back, frankly, the last thing I wanted to do was to go back into the tunnel and to write about it. And I mean, there were lots of people suggesting that I should write about it, but I just said, I'm not, you know, I don't want to do it. I'm a novelist, I want to write novels, you know, and I want to get back to my real life.
Yeah.
And so for a long time, that's what I did. I wrote novels and stories and so on. But I always knew that I would write about it. It's one of the reasons that I had kept a journal through all those years. Because I'm not normally somebody who keeps journals. But in this period, I thought so much is happening with such intensity, you know, that there's no way of remembering it. So write it down. So I did.
Now, your memoirs are called Joseph Anton, named after Joseph Conrad and Anton Chekhov. But before you were going to be Joseph Anton, you wanted to be Ajeeb Mamuli, an Ajeeb Aadmi who's also an ordinary Aadmi.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
now, you are, people might call you Ajeeb, but you're not Mamuli.
I don't know, I felt pretty Mamuli at the time. I mean, that was really just a joke name, really. I didn't ever think that it was going to seriously catch on.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason I made it the title of the book is just to give people a sense of how weird those days were. You know, first of all, to be asked to give up your name is very strange, especially if you're the author of books which have your name on them, you know. And also to be asked to give up the ethnicity of your name. You know, don't choose an Indian name, it's too obvious. Then I thought, well, if I can't have Indian names, I can retreat into literature, which is sort of my other country, I guess. And that's why, so I finally picked up these first names of Conrad and Chekhov.
Except much to your annoyance, not just do you have this false name, which is not your ethnicity or your cultural background, but Joseph becomes Joe.
Yes, couldn't stand it. Yeah, it really annoyed me.
Yeah. Did you ever tell your protectors
Yes,
that?
I told them all the time. I said, you know, it's really irritating. And, you know, they had to get into they had to train themselves, you know, to use this name all the time so that they didn't use my name by accident. But I must say, the day I could get rid of this pseudonym was a good day. You know, it always annoyed me. And I just thought it would be a way of dramatizing for people the strangeness of the time.
Now, interestingly, you are writing not in the first person. You're actually writing about Joseph Anton as Salman Rushdie, right?
Sort of, yeah. I mean,
because that was life, wasn't it? It was 2 people in one.
Well, I did think partly what I wanted to say is that there was a kind of strange dislocation of identity in those years. And there were so many versions of me that were created, you know, by people for their own agendas, whatever. There were so many Salman Rushdies walking around, you know, none of which were really me. That I also wanted to write about that, about what it feels like to have your identity taken away from you and remade by other people, you know, for their own purposes. And how hard it was to try and say, excuse me, I'm not like those people over there with my name on them, you know, I'm like this. And that was a very difficult thing. But also I had very much had this idea when I started writing the book that I wanted to write it novelistically. I wanted to write it to have the kind of shape, language, the attention to character,
Yeah.
you know, that you have in a novel. Because I thought, if the people, including the person with my name, if the people are not alive on the page, then you don't care about them. To make the reader care about them, you have to use a kind of novelistic technique. I thought about these famous non-fiction novels, as they're called, you know, like The Right Stuff, or, you know, In Cold Blood, or
Yeah.
Schindler's List, you know, books like this. And I thought that's sort of a way to go, that to take, these are stories that are completely true,
Yeah.
but the writer has used a kind of novelist skill to tell that story.
India's #1 news app just got even better. Download NDTV's new app. Fully optimized for retina display. Full screen view. Faster response time. And Sudoku. NDTV's new iPad app. Download now.